25. Tonight we have a special occasion, so we're going to call in the color guard for the Pledge of Allegiance.
If everybody could please stand up for the colors.
If everyone would join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Left base. Present arms. Order arms.
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind staying in position until we go ahead and I'm polling item 3A from the business agenda to the top of the agenda because we have such a wonderful showing here. And I would like to go ahead and get that done so you guys can go off and have more fun than a Board of Commissioners meeting. Item 3A is Resolution 2025-130, confirming the appointment of James P. Smith, Jr. as Radnor Township Fire and EMS Chief, and adopting a memorandum of understanding. Mr. White, you want to start us off?
Thank you, Madam President. I am excited to recommend for the board's consideration the appointment of James P. Smith as the Township's first ever Fire and EMS Chief. As the board is aware, that this process began back in January, where I gave a presentation to the board and the community highlighting the needs of this position as a means to bring expertise onto the township staff with regard to these ongoing conversations with the fire and EMS service. We understand, the volunteer fire companies that we work with are absolutely professional. They're doing a fantastic job. But we also understand that the long-term implications of the profession are in question with regard to decreasing volunteer numbers and concerns with the EMS staffing and finance, the financial wherewithal of that as well. So bringing this position on board was critical at this time so that we can ensure that the service remains as top-notch as it is today going forward for the community. I'm happy to bring Mr. Smith to the board tonight. I will try to get through this quickly. Mr. Smith's experience includes 8 years as Director of Fire Chief for Ocean City and Rescue Services at both in New Jersey, obviously, where he supervised 2 deputy chiefs, 4 battalion chiefs, 12 captains, and personnel totaling 67 career fire and EMS, operating from 3 different stations, including a fire-based emergency medical service. Mr. Smith also served 9 years as Deputy Emergency Management Coordinator for Ocean City Emergency Management, where he was responsible for protecting the barrier island with tax ratables of over $13 billion in a population ranging from 25,000 to 150,000, depending on the time of year. This position also included management-level decision-making and administration, including budgeting, human resources, master and contingency planning, logistics, operational command and control, communications, special operations, public education, and public information. The process that the township went through for the last 6 months included an initial advertising, which generated 44 qualified candidates. Through the services of MGT, narrowed the field down to nine candidates that were initially screened, then down to 4, then down to 2, then down to 1, and happy to bring Mr. Smith here before the board tonight for his appointment.
Thank you. Could I get a motion to approve Resolution 2025-130? So moved by Commissioner Agnew, and a second. Second by Commissioner Riley. Is there any public participation on this issue? Seeing none, I'm going to call a vote on Resolution 2025-130. All in favor? Aye. It's unanimous, and with general support, I know, from Commissioner Mulrooney, who couldn't be here tonight as well. Thank you. We're ready for the swearing in.
solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support,
that I will support,
obey, and defend
obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
the Home Rule Charter
the Home Rule Charter,
and ordinances of Radnor Township.
and ordinances of Radnor Township.
I will discharge
I will discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as Fire EMS Chief for Radnor Township
as Fire EMS Chief for Radnor Township
with honor and fidelity.
with honor and fidelity.
I will uphold, obey, and enforce
I will uphold, obey, and enforce
the laws of Pennsylvania
the laws of Pennsylvania
and the Township of Radnor
and the Township of Radnor
without consideration
without consideration
to a person's race,
to a person's race,
color,
color,
sex,
sex,
religious creed,
religious creed,
sexual orientation,
sexual orientation,
age,
age,
national origin,
national origin,
ancestry,
ancestry,
handicap,
handicap,
or disability.
or disability.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Me too. Right, hey. Forward, march.
Normally, there's usually a badge cleaning, we don't have that yet. That's something that you're gonna have to work on, so, thank you, congratulations. I know the folks at home aren't gonna get to hear this, so I apologize, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you to all the uniformed individuals at the back of the room that aren't on TV right now, but this is a tremendous showing, so thank you a million for coming out tonight, it means a ton.
I just want to thank the commissioners and Bill for having their support for me and for everybody coming out. It's very humbling, so thank you very much.
All right, there's a small reception in the roll call room, so if you'd like, Mr. Smith and family, congratulations. Very good. Nice to meet you.
Hey, so, Bill, just one question, and that wasn't the right environment to ask, but there is a little confusion. So we've got, if I boil it down to the basics, it sounds like we have an operations chief with the fire company and an administrative chief with the fire company. And it's a little confusing to me, so I'm sure it's confusing to others when we say the fire chief. Is that a conversation that is going to be had at a later time of if we need to rename a position?
So the short answer is yes. And going back to the presentation in January when we were defining the roles of this position, ultimately where the naming came down to is the fact that at the end of the day, the municipality, Radnor Township, is ultimately responsible for the delivery of these services to the community. We are fortunate to have the three fire companies doing an excellent job in delivering that service. But since we're ultimately responsible, the chief title was assigned at that time. What we don't know is exactly how this is going to mature going forward. And that if it makes more sense, both administratively and operationally, to reconsider the name, absolutely will be on the table.
Thanks for the question. All right, we've done the Pledge of Allegiance. I do want to give notice that we did have an executive session prior to this meeting to discuss personnel and legal issues. We're going to start the evening off then, now that I've messed everything up on the agenda, with discussion of the Wayne Master Plan. Mr. Taxa, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me once again. I appreciate it. So I have prepared a short presentation to kind of go over the Wayne Master Plan, what we're calling a vision for Wayne, building off of the idea of the comprehensive plan, which was a vision for Radnor. I'm going to walk through the scope of services, talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing, and then I've left time at the end to answer any of your questions along the way. So to talk a little bit about your team on this project. So I am going to be the project manager on this. I've got obviously FHI studio staff that's going to be supporting me, but I'm going to also be joined on this project by two sub-consultants, Walker Consultants and MBJ Consultants. Walker, led by Megan, is going to be doing the parking analysis work on that, which I'll get into in a lot of detail. But this is basically what they do. This is their bread and butter. This is all Megan does is parking analysis. So a really great person to have on board with this. And then Michael is going to be focusing on the retail issues that have sort of been brought up and give us really specific guidance around that. He's got a lot of experience working not only in the region, but also across the nation. So it's going to be, I think, a really good asset on this team. I'm going to walk through the project background a little bit. As a reminder, I guess almost a year and a half ago, we did the comprehensive plan survey. We had like 500 responses to that. There were over 3,000 comments. And one of the things that we asked people to do was to put a dot on a map and basically said, like, where are the issues and opportunities in Radnor Township? And then we got this big glowing red spot right around Wayne, right? When you looked at all of the different issues that people identified, a lot of them were concentrated around Wayne. And that included like housing, historic preservation, open space comments, mobility, design and land use. It was sort of a concentration, a lot of that. So we worked with the township and you all to put together a grant for what's called the Transportation and Community Development Initiative, which is an initiative by DVRPC, which is the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. They're the regional planning entity for the greater Philadelphia area. And the township was awarded a $100,000 grant, which they matched with some in-kind services, staff services. So no actual dollars were necessary. That grant is going to cover the public engagement, the multimodal transportation planning work, the land use and housing work, and the placemaking sort of analysis of this. But as we were putting that grant together, we realized there were two sort of services that the TCEI grant wasn't going to be able to cover. And so we worked with you all to allocate funding for a parking analysis and recommendations, business attraction and retention study, and then additional stakeholder and public engagement really around those two topics. This is probably going to be the last time that I talk about these two things as separate. We're going to be treating this as one single project, but it's really for something for Steve and I to be working together on like how invoices get paid. But it is going to be treated as one single project. So the planning work is really going to be broken into a couple of different areas. This is the study area for the project. So really the way to think about this is the WBO boundaries with that area north of the rail station, like on Plant Ave and Poplar Ave, added on to that. And the reason why we added that onto that is the TCDI grant is really supposed to be focused on transportation and community land use issues. And so we really felt it was important to include the other side of the tracks, essentially, if we were going to be talking about the train station. But as you can see, it sort of spans both sides of Lancaster Avenue and both sides of Wayne Avenue. One of the things that we're going to be doing to kick off all of this is a previous plan review. So we've already started to dig into like the 2006 Wayne Master Plan. We are still looking at the 2006 comprehensive plan to make sure that, you know, whatever was discussed in that plan is also at least acknowledged in this planning effort. There's been work by DVRPC. They've done, including Wayne-specific recommendations on that US 30 route corridor study. We're looking at the open space and greenways plan, the comprehensive trail map. We're going to be, you know, looking at the most recent comprehensive plan, but also pulling in all those specific planning efforts into this. Then we're going to be doing an existing conditions analysis. So we'll look at things like demographics, land use, regulatory conditions. We're going to be analyzing the transportation network, looking at things like where are there sidewalk gaps, where are the bus stops, how do you access different parking areas. We're going to be looking at the public realm and public space conditions, historic building and assets, and the sort of state of parking and supply and demand. But I wanted to talk specifically about the parking piece of this because I thought it would be helpful for you all to understand a little bit more about what that process is going to look like. So first things first is they're going to dig into the land use data, right? So parking is all driven by land use. If there's nothing there, if there are no land uses, nobody goes there to park. They're going to look at the Park Mobile data. So one of the great things that you all have is you've switched over to this Park Mobile system. They collect a whole bunch of data, and it's all tied to individual spaces in Wayne. So we actually have data on like how much a space is being paid for in Wayne, you know, basically year round. Then we're going to do a utilization study, and that's where we're actually going to go out and count cars in both public and private lots. So the one thing that is missing from the Park Mobile data, obviously, are private lots, because you guys don't collect that data. So we're going to go out and do that, and we're going to do 4 counts on a single weekday. So basically, we'll pick some times, morning, afternoon, evening, and go out, and we will get a sense of basically how many cars are parked in what lots, in what parts of the street. And then that data will be used to sort of inform the Park Mobile data. So one way to think about this a little bit is the Park Mobile data is very good. It's generally pretty accurate, but I'm sure nobody in this room, but some people don't pay for parking. They don't always necessarily get a ticket for it, right? It helps us sort of ground truth that Park Mobile data to a specific time. And then we're going to be doing a turnover study. And a turnover study we'll probably do on the next day. It's typically just like a before, like one day, second day. And that's a little different. So in the utilization study, when we're going out there, we're just counting how many cars are there in those lots, in those spaces. In the turnover study, it's different. We're actually looking at license plates and seeing how quickly spaces are turning over. So is that same car parked in a spot for an hour? Is it 2 hours? Is it 3 hours? We're typically doing it on sort of hour increments. And then again, that will be benchmarked against the Park Mobile data. So you'll sort of have an information about from Park Mobile, and then we'll have the ground truth of what we collect on the day. And what that's going to allow Walker Consultants to do is basically build a model to understand what's happening with the parking in the area. We're going to be looking at that. I think late September is when we're going to start to do that. That should be a good time of the year. It won't be, you know, summertime. Kids will be back from school. It should be a good time for us to get kind of an accurate picture. And then again, because you have that Park Mobile data, we got a lot of really good resources there. On the retail side of it, we're going to be doing a lot of engagement. So I want to emphasize that we're going to be doing like trade area analysis. We're going to be going out and we're going to be looking at like the market data that's available. We're going to be looking at case studies, basically other similar retail areas in the region. But the retail piece is also really important to engage with merchants, property owners, developers, interviews with like stakeholders like the WBA. Like we are going to be, really talking to people to understand what are the issues going on in the retail side of it. Because although that's a very numbers-driven process in some ways, it's also a very, very important to get sort of on-the-ground realities from people who are living it every day. We're going to have a really robust public and stakeholder engagement process. So this is going to be a lot like the comprehensive plan, but in miniature. So we're going to have a website. We're going to be sending out every door direct mailers to everybody who is basically, I think we get 5,000 mailers. So we're going to target those to those areas in and around Wayne. We're going to send out emails and through the sort of township announcements. And then we've got a bunch of stakeholder engagement, including 3 technical advisory committee meetings, 5 general stakeholder meetings, 12 retail-focused meetings, and a parking-focused meeting. We're also going to have an open house. We're tentatively shooting for November 1st. What the idea with that is going to be is we're going to try to get a tent put together and get out there so that we can actually do the open house in Wayne. The nice thing about that is we'll be very visible. People are able to walk by. We're going to be able to announce it. But we tend to find that those kinds of events capture a much larger audience than if we were to have it, for example, here in the township building or even at the library, because people can literally just walk by and be like, oh, what's going on? We're also going to try to advertise that a little bit. The weekend before that, the Wayne Business Association is having a Halloween event, so we're going to try to get out and advertise a little bit during that as well. We're also going to be doing a Downtown Retail 101 sort of information session. We're going to do a plan development workshop. That'll be next year. And then I'll be making about 4 presentations to you all along the way, including this one. And then along the way, we'll always have like a project email address where anybody who has questions, wants to get more information about what's going on, can email us, and they can obviously go to the website and get details there. So the final plan is going to include a land use vision. It's going to focus on business attraction and retention and parking. We'll identify multimodal improvements, so that means basically improvements for drivers, transit passengers, bicyclists, pedestrians, everybody who moves around the area. We're going to talk about housing diversity and affordability, stormwater management and resilience, placemaking, and then there'll be an action plan and implementation strategy. One thing that I just want to point out here that might be a little bit different from like the comprehensive plan, for example, is we probably will not have a chapter for each one of these ideas. Where in the comprehensive plan, there was like an environmental chapter. There was like a chapter on transportation and mobility. What we will probably do is put together a series of recommendations that incorporate all of these concepts and ideas, but doesn't sort of deal them out separately. It tends to be a little too burdensome to do that for such a small geography. The timeline for this is going to be sort of this year, September through December. We're going to be kicking off that technical advisory committee soon. We have already started the previous plan review and our existing conditions analysis. We're going to start that parking study. We're going to start moving on those stakeholder engagement meetings. The open house in Wayne is going to be coming up in November. And then I'll be coming back to you, and the sub-consultants will be coming back to you with presentations, basically talking about our initial findings from that work. And then next year, we're going to start moving into the recommendations phase. And that's going to be involving like a public workshop where we talk to people about some of the findings that we've had, put out maybe some suggestions or possible recommendations for moving things forward, but also sort of have a collaborative opportunity to brainstorm ideas and think about what could happen in Wayne to advance some of the goals and objectives of the plan. We'll put together those preliminary recommendations. Again, there'll be more technical advisory committee meetings, more Board of Commissioner presentations. Then we'll develop the plan and move everything forward through implementation. So that's sort of a quick overview of what we've been scoped to do, and I'm happy to answer any questions or talk a little bit about, what you'd like to see going forward.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Questions? Commissioner Abel, I know you have one.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for the presentation. Very informative. A question on the parking study.
Yeah.
How does the current environment skew or impact the study? And two things come to mind. One is the construction on Lancaster Avenue, which the storefronts are not currently in business.
Yeah.
So I assume when those are up and running, we'll see more parking in that area.
Yeah.
And then the SEPTA lot, which is currently, I believe, still free. So I assume we have a lot of people who come down to the Wayne Business District parking by the train station to get free parking. Oh, there. Okay, so SEPTA might not be an issue.
Okay.
But still, how does construction impact the study?
So if you're talking about the project on the former AT&T?
No, I'm
No.
talking about the ones down by the middle school.
Oh, the ones by the middle school.
Where Ballard Design is coming in.
Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe, Steve, you and I can touch base on that. We're trying to find the right time to do this study. I would say that when you talk about vacancies, what we'll be doing, and that's that first piece, is sort of building the land use mix. And then once the model is built, they can sort of anticipate and talk about if those were to be occupied, what would be the typical parking needs for something like that? And what would that impact be on the overall parking condition? Because although it's obviously really important right now to get a picture of what's happening, right? Because that can be very valuable for you all as well. One of the things that we're going to be able to do with this is test different scenarios, right? So if, for example, the retail strategy were to attract certain types of retailers, and those came in, what would the impact be of that on the overall, parking demand in the area? And would that mean that, you're maximizing your current facilities, or maybe you have, capacity? And one of the things that we find with these parking studies is it typically, it surprises people about utilization, right? Because most people come to a place typically in its peak hours, right? When it's most needed. And so there's usually this perception that hey, we don't have enough parking. And what typically we'll find is oh no, you don't have enough parking during certain periods of time. And then you have surplus parking at other periods of time. And that's when we can start having conversations about well, if you attracted businesses that maybe had off-peak, demand, right, they could be better suited for you because they won't put as much pressure on your peak time period. Or you may say, no, we really want businesses that are going to drive certain, peak hour parking, and we need to find other solutions around that.
Okay. And then how far back do you go with the data?
So the Park Mobile data goes to 2023? Is that when you switched over?
Right. Mike Maratea, who runs that for Superintendent Flanagan, provided all that information. And I believe that 2023 is when we had full data from that, and that's what we provided to the park.
Yeah, you were using kiosks before that, right? There was something else that you had. So we have that data too, but we're basically, working back. And as long as we have about a year's worth of data and we're sort of past the COVID issues, I think that should be plenty of data for us to build off of.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I wanted to add to Commissioner Abel's question. We have another lot that's currently under construction that's going to be taking the place of the AT&T lot.
Right.
When that goes up.
Right.
So that's another one to think about the timing. I know it looks pretty much done now. Trees are in and lights are up, and so maybe that'll just be part of but that'll be all new information. There won't be any backlog for you. The other thing, and this is just a question I always have, is along Lancaster, there are multiple 15-minute parking spaces. There's some now that have been taken out because of that construction, but they're outside of Dunkin' Donuts, the kind of takeout
Right.
parking spaces. Park Mobile gives you 10 minutes free. And I have never, and I've watched a little bit, never seen anybody pay for those 15-minute spaces.
Sure.
So my thing is either like cut your loss,
Cut
make
the
it
losses.
10, or, I don't know what. But anyway, it's something to take a little extra look at maybe, because I
Yeah.
think that either we're not getting money we could have, or,
Yeah.
maybe it should be free for those, kind of just run in and get your coffee.
Right, and I think that's something that we're going to be looking at all of this. So, one of the things that will be coming out of this with are what are typically called like parking management recommendations. And so that doesn't mean those are sort of separate from the supply and demand. Hey, you need to build more parking spaces, or you have more parking spaces than you need, and talks more about like that, like, hey, you need more 15-minute parking spaces so people can pop in and pop out and turn it over, or, what we typically find and is usually the case is most communities charge the same amount for their on-street parking spaces as their off-street parking spaces, even though those on-street parking spaces, for example, are much more valuable, right? People want to go to those first, and so that tends to be a sort of a policy to be thinking about, like, well, if you want those to turn over a little bit more frequently and you don't want people to, for example, camp out there for 4 hours, right, just feeding meters, then you need to either increase prices or you need to think about other strategies to kind of move them along. But that's something much further down the road
Yeah.
for us.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Can you go back to your map with the concentric circles? So, when you're talking about different types of housing, I think where you've cut out a lot of the apartment buildings, as well as St. David's Park, which is a lot of condos, reasonably priced condos. Why are they not part of the consideration?
Are you talking about to the east, or where are you?
Well, they are to the east.
Yeah, to the east. So we specifically focus on the Wayne Business Overlay boundaries, which is the boundary for the zoning map, because that is where sort of traditionally we had understood sort of Wayne to extend to. I think we could probably talk about, expansion of this. The one thing that I would emphasize is that if you see those dotted lines, and I apologize, I thought I had labeled those circles that are on there. Those are a quarter mile and a half mile distance from the train station, and typically a half mile is about as far as most people consider sort of comfortable to walk to transit. And so because this was a Transportation and Community Development Initiative funded grant, and the idea was that it was supposed to support transit accessibility, that's why another reason to sort of limit it to the half mile. But we can certainly talk about.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't include, St. David's Station and all of the rental houses, a lot of rental housing, a lot.
Right, and I would say, to be clear, and I want to emphasize this, like, this is not, we're not going to be able to solve all of the problems that we had identified in the comprehensive plan here, right? We sort of went based on kind of this map, right, that really emphasized Wayne as a sort of focal point and the sort of area of where people were. I certainly think that St. Davis and Radnor, Station have a lot of things that could be improved about them. There's, planning efforts that could be done here, but this was really supposed to be focused on Wayne. And to be clear, this grant was also put together before we were even close to finalizing the recommendations on the comprehensive plan, because the grant is on a 2-year cycle. So we did the community engagement. We saw this as like an opportunity to pursue this grant, worked with you all to kind of get it together, but did not have like a sort of firm understanding of what the recommendations of the comprehensive plan were going to be.
Just a couple more questions
Yeah.
on parking. And just for clarification, I was told that SEPTA is charging $2 a day for parking, so that is a discounted rate. I don't know how that'll impact your
Yep.
your studies and numbers. But as a part of your study review, are you also going to be looking at parking configuration?
Yes. So we are going to.
That area on Lancaster, you know, where all the stores are, that is not an easy, I mean, it's easy to get in, but turnover time, you're spending more time trying to get to back out of there.
Yes. So I think, and that's a really good point to clarify on this. So we've talked about this a lot with the comprehensive plan. I think that Lancaster Avenue it needs a lot of work. Right? It's a DOT road. You are seeing a ton of through traffic through there that has nothing to do with anything that you guys are producing. I don't know, I guess this is being recorded, I don't know how PennDOT ever approved that parking. It is crazy to be back angle out of there. The problem is that, like, admittedly, there's no like obvious solution to this. And one of the things that we've talked about is working with PennDOT to do a more detailed study of that entire section of Lancaster Avenue. Because the other thing that's going on there is there's other traffic issues. So, you know, Commissioner Agnew, we've talked about this. So on the turning into Wayne Avenue, whether going north or south, there's no dedicated turn lane there. So what's ending up happening is you get people sitting essentially there, traffic backs up, right? People are popping around there. You've got really narrow sidewalks right at the corner on some of those corners. So people are standing like right at that intersection as people are popping around, as people are backing up. It's a really messy sort of situation. And we think that like working very closely with PennDOT to do a real detailed study of that area is really what's going to be necessary. So we will probably make some like top level recommendations about how to handle that, but I don't think that area specifically we're going to be able to get into a lot of detail on like how to reconfigure, because any recommendation that we come out of is going to need like a full analysis of like the turning movements and the signal timing and all of that stuff, which is well beyond the scope of sort of what we've got budgeted for this project. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, but at the end of it, will you, is the plan to provide the township with your recommendation on updates, revisions that we can implement that'll help the situation?
I think my recommendation is going to be to continue to work, like we've had conversations with PennDOT. They seem to suggest that they're open to this, to continue to engage PennDOT. They're going to hopefully be on the steering committee with this. I think it's going to be, so I will say let me put this in contrast to like North Wayne Avenue, right? The situation on North Wayne Avenue is very different. The parking there is much more easy to understand. There's not all of these complicated turning movements. I think we could make recommendations around the parking situation there that you could take to PennDOT and have a reasonable confidence that PennDOT would say, yes, this makes sense, we can further study it. My concern would be that if we propose anything too drastic along Lancaster Avenue at that point, we wouldn't have all the data. We can give them suggestions about, for example, like we did in the comp plan, we think you should think about a road diet. We think you should look at back-end angle parking, which is the opposite of what's going on right now, which is instead of pulling in and then backing out onto Route 30, what you do is you back into your parking space. And that way, when you're pulling out of your parking space, you can see as you're going. Certainly can start to make those recommendations, but I think you'd really want to make sure PennDOT was like all the way on board and you were sort of holding hands with them through that process. Otherwise, I think it's quite honestly just going to end up a little bit on deaf ears there. Yep.
Any further questions or comments? Any public comments about this? All right. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you all
and
very
we'll
much.
see you.
And again, let me just emphasize, if you have any questions along the way, if anything comes up, you all have my contact information, and Maggie and Commissioner Agnew are both on the steering committee on this. So please let us know. All right. Thank you.
Thanks again. All right. I'll open it up for general public participation.
I get the overhead? Sarah Pilling, 29 Garrett Avenue. I'd like to talk about the Thursday event at Villanova that we went through several weeks ago. I was home. I received a red alert on my telephone, didn't know I was on it. Called a good friend who lives immediately behind Villanova, and she says to me, "What's going on?" And so I alerted that person, and that person, it was in Jim's ward, alerted all the neighbors. They knew nothing about it. The way most people found out about this event was on Patch, or if they happened to turn on Channel 6. And living where I live, across the field from Route 30, I could immediately see and hear all the emergency vehicles. So I thought about it, and I asked several friends who live within a block of Villanova, well, how had I found out? How is anybody to find out? So I wrote Bill White and asked him about Code Red, and he sent me off to Maggie. And I have this information. I think it's a piece of information that each commissioner should send to their constituents, because sadly, although it turned out it was a hoax, this might not be the end of this situation. And so I'd like to recommend, and that's why I blew it up today, or you can go to the website and trundle your way through, which I have tried, but I find your website very bulky to handle. I'm just concerned that people didn't know about it. My next-door neighbor is a professor at Villanova, and what I heard him say was that 15 years ago, he recommended to Villanova that they have an emergency plan, because on the day of that event, there were people sheltering on the bridge that crosses the railroad track. A sharpshooter would have had a wonderful time. So we weren't really prepared. There was a wonderful response. I got the red alert. I think Bill Colarulo sent it to me. I never knew I had it, but he knew I lived alone. I lived within a bus ride, a train ride, and a pig and whistle ride. And if ever there was a problem, he was very, very caring for the fact that I was an older person and I lived alone. But I think that the township should be educated so that people can be signed up in this, so that any kind of an emergency, flood, hurricane, anything, the township residents would be better alerted to what was going on. Thank you.
Thank you. I also get Code Red, and it's wonderful. You get it for storms, you get it for possible flash flooding, and I didn't get this because I don't live as close as you do to the university. But I think this is a terrific idea. Thank you very much.
There's too many people who live very close to the university that didn't receive it and didn't know what was going on. And if they hadn't gotten Patch immediately, or Channel 6 was right on it, they would not have known what was going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, does Code Red also include a phone call? Mm-hmm. It does?
You get a text.
Unless you turn that off.
Any further public participation? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Is there any item that anyone in the room would like to remove from the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? So moved by Commissioner Larkin, and a second. So moved, and a second. Thank you very much. All in favor? Aye? It's unanimous. Moving on to the business agenda, we did item 3A with much pomp and circumstance. Wasn't that fun? Item 3B is the appointment of Elizabeth Springer to the Code Appeals Board for a partial term ending December 31st, 2027. The Code of Appeals Board is a board that we very rarely use, but should be attended to, and Elizabeth would bring it up to a quorum. She is a civil structural engineer, so would qualify nicely. There are some strict requirements to be on the Code Appeals Board. I guess that's all I have to say. Could I have a motion to approve the appointment of Elizabeth Springer? So moved by Commissioner Riley, and a second. Second by Commissioner Agnew. I heard it first. All right, any commissioner comments or questions? Any public participation? Seeing none, I'm going to call a vote. All in favor of the appointment, raise your hand. It's unanimous. Congratulations. Thank you. Item 2C is Resolution 2025-124, authorizing the Shade Tree Commission to expend up to an additional $27,000 from the Commemorative Shade Tree Fund for tree planting and maintenance in 2025. Mr. Foster, do you want to start us off?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Tonight we have the chairman from the Shade Tree Commission, James Gibbons, and the Shade Tree Commission has been doing excellent work with trying to reforest our parks and also help out the residents to have larger canopy trees in their yards. But currently, Mr. Gibbons is in front of you because they have some projects that they wanted to move forward with this fall. And he's going to talk about those and ask for permission to be able to do that. We also talked with the finance director, Mr. Tate, because there was some budget constraints that they had. So that was approved, but now they need to go through the board to ask to further move forward with the project. So he'll take it from here, Mr. Gibbons.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Mr. Gibbons,
Thanks,
you're welcome
Ricky.
to speak.
Good evening. So the shade trees during our fall planting this year, and we are proposing to plant 80 bare root trees, 42 for residents in the right-of-way, 34 additional for the reforestation project at the Willows, and 4 replacement trees for West Wayne Cemetery. In addition to that, we're also looking to plant 16 additional trees, 13 of which are in the Wayne Business District. So the project that you guys did probably 5-6 years ago with the whole sidewalks and everything, a lot of those trees are dying, well, 13 of them. John Hosbeck and I think Steve or Ricky was out there. That's it. And they looked at the trees, made a replacement, which tree should go back in there. There was 13 of those. Then there's also 3 replacement trees on Aberdeen Terrace. And I think the township has taken them down, or they're going to take them down at some point. So we just added those in. They're 3 big oak trees. So all those trees together, we're looking to, I don't think I have it on here, get an additional 27,000, I think it is. I think we're budgeted, Mr. Tate's not here, but we have like 6,000 left in our budget for this year. But we have about 45 to 55,000 for planting. We just have to get approval to use that additional money. And that money comes from Chanticleer, fee in lieu of, and PICO grant. We got $10,000. So there's a lot of money there. We want to use it to do these projects and get an approval. That's pretty much it. And you can see up there what we've done, but we have a great group of people. We planted a lot of trees, and most of the money, I think, comes from outside sources, so it's not coming from taxpayers or taxes. Any questions?
Thank you so much. Any questions? Commissioner Abel.
First of all, appreciate your service. You guys
Welcome.
are doing great work.
Thanks.
I see all the trees popping up around the neighborhood. So the 4 replacement trees for the West Wayne Cemetery, is that in addition to the trees that were recently planted there?
Yes, so what do we do there? There was 4 trees that were planted, I think in the spring with the spring planting, they died. So I think we're going to replace those with 4 more for this fall planting.
But there are a couple new ones
And
right
then
as you enter the.
myself and one of the neighbors planted, I think it was 6 trees
Okay.
in the spring along the road there. And we took money out, I think out of Shade Tree, it was about $900 for the trees. Me and the neighbor, we did the labor for free. Hopefully, I think they're still doing well.
Perfect.
But we just want to replace the dead ones.
Okay.
that are
And
back.
then I believe a neighbor has been before the Shade Tree Committee, and they had requested, so they live on a circle.
Yes.
And they have cherry trees,
Morris, or,
more circle.
I spoke with him.
And I
yes.
believe some of them have died off, some of them have been removed, and others are probably in the process of dying.
Correct.
And they were exploring options, instead of getting, the bare root tree, could the shade tree provide?
We
cherry
discussed
tree.
that, and I actually spoke to, I forget the gentleman's name that lived up there and was coordinating that. I think the issue there is he had to get approval first or ask neighbors if they actually want them.
Okay,
And I haven't heard anything back from him since.
all right, I'll reach out
But
to
we
him.
left
just
it
let him know.
out that come fall, sign up for the fall tree planting. We have 42 trees that are going to residents that sign up. So if they signed up, which we offered that, then we could plant a tree
Okay.
at his house at least, or whoever needs it.
And Commissioner, could I jump into?
Sure.
We know that they liked all the cherry trees to be the same, so that's something that we would consider, and if the neighborhood wants that to always stay the same, we'll make sure that that happens too. So once we get all the particulars, put together, we'll move forward with the plan, and you'll hear about it.
Yeah, and as you know, the history of that area, the cherry trees are on Morse Road. The cherry trees have always been on Morse Circle, and I think most, if not all the neighbors, want to keep that uniformity.
Yeah, we're ready to help out any way we can. So I think we're just waiting for him to kind of get the ball rolling with who actually wants a tree in front of their house.
Yeah. When's your next meeting?
It's the last, 4th Wednesday of the month.
Okay.
So whatever that, I don't even know what today is.
Same.
Commissioner, could I say one more point?
Absolutely.
If you look at the resolution, I just want to make sure it's crystal clear. Those last 2 bullet points where it says replacing the trees on the street at 105 Aberdeen, we still have to come before you, that second bullet point, third bullet point, because it's probably going to be over the amount to remove those trees and everything on the Wayne Business District. So you're not approving us doing the work yet to remove everything. It's just to have the money to replace the trees. So removal of the trees will still come back before this board. I just want to make sure that that's clear, that we're only replacing or asking for permission to do the replanting work.
Thank you. You made it clear. All right.
And I just want to add that a lot of these plantings too, although we work with PHS, we get a great price on trees, and most of the work is done by volunteers as well. In the township and all over.
All right, thank you all for your presentations. Could I have a motion to approve Resolution 2025-124? So moved by Commissioner Larkin, and a second? Second. Any further Commissioner questions or comments? Hi. Any public participation? Seeing none, I'll call a vote on Resolution 2025-124. All in favor? Aye. It's unanimous.
We got 5 Gs. Thank you, guys.
Good job, thanks. Item 3D, Resolution 2025-122, authorizing the execution of 2 opioid-related settlement forms. 1, the Secondary Manufacturers Settlement Participation Form, and 2, the Purdue Direct Settlement Participation Form. Mr. Nelson, do you have any comments about this?
Nothing earth-shattering. We signed similar agreements in December of 2021 regarding earlier settlements. It's the same sort of setup whereby we are not going to directly get this money, but by signing these agreements, the state, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, as well as the Delaware County will get more money out of these settlements. So the more municipalities that sign up, it ultimately will help out our state and our county. We're specifically not really giving up anything to do this, and so, certainly it is John Rice's and my recommendation that this be done, and it will ultimately help the residents of the township.
Thank you. Very nicely explained, actually. All right. Could I get a motion to approve Resolution 2025-122? So moved by Commissioner Agnew, and a second. Second by Commissioner Larkin. Any questions or comments? We did this about, 3 years ago or something? All right, any public participation on this? Seeing none, I'm going to call the vote on Resolution 2025-122. All in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. 3E, Resolution 2025-126, authorization of the payment of change order for the trench conduit encasement and cover as it relates to the roof replacement and solar array installation project to Glasgow Incorporated for the Public Works Garage Parking Lot Resurfacing Project, Contract B24-002, in the amount of $69,900 to be paid from the proceeds of the 2024 facility bond. Mr. Norsini?
Thank you, Commissioner. So it's a little juxtaposed. As you're aware, we just rebid the roofing and solar project. As part of that, there's trenching that needs to be done. We were hoping to have this done some time ago so that we could resurface a previously approved project, resurface the Public Works Garage. This pushed us back. So we need to get this trench and related conduit in the ground prior to paving in October. The bidding is already on this current project, and that would be push us back until next year. So speaking with the solicitor, we already have a previously approved contract with Glasgow for the resurfacing. So we requested a price from them for the trenching and the conduit and the concrete and all material. And that's why we're here before you tonight. So the goal is to get this trench completed with the conduit so we can pave the Public Works parking lot.
And thank you for not doing them in the reverse order, which is usually how these things happen, is you pave the lot and then realize you have to trench it. So, all right. Could I have a motion to approve Resolution 2025-126? So moved by Commissioner Riley, and a second? Second by Commissioner Agnew. Any commissioner comments or questions? Seeing none, any public participation? All right, call a vote on Resolution 2025-126. All in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. All right, our last item is Resolution 2025-127, authorization of the award, the contract for the design, permitting, bidding, and construction administration for the crosswalk, ADA upgrades, and the rectangular rapid flashing beacon at Conestoga Road and Clem McCrone Park to Gilmore Associates Incorporated in the amount of $46,200 to be funded from the Capital Improvement Fund. Mr. Norsini.
Thank you, Commissioner. So this proposal actually encompasses two items. So there is the survey, design, and permitting, right? That's the bulk of it. But there is also, once we get through that process with PennDOT, there also is the design and bidding documents. So this would take us right to a bid package that we could put out. We also have possible solar alternative. And as you can see, if you read the proposal, there are some estimated costs. I do want to caution the board, based on the design, the permitting, and the bidding, we're looking at approximately 18 months from tonight until installation. So we're requesting to award this to Gilmore for that purpose.
Thank you. All right, could I get a motion to approve Resolution 2025-127? So moved by Commissioner Riley, and a second. Second by Commissioner Agnew. Commissioner comments or questions. First, I would like to read a statement that was sent to me by Commissioner Coates, who could not be here tonight. But he would like to express his sincere gratitude to Mr. White, Director Cohen, and Mr. Norsini for their support in helping secure the flashing crosswalks at Clem McCrone Park. As you know, many residents refer to Conestoga Road as Conestoga Raceway, and too often drivers do not stop for pedestrians. Securing this flashing light was one of his top priorities when he ran for commissioner, and it will make a real difference for families crossing one of our township's busiest streets. He's incredibly grateful and can speak for Ward 7 residents when he thanks all of you for your leadership and partnership in making this happen. Any other commissioner questions or comments? Commissioner Abel.
Steve, is 18 months typical?
Well, this is the permitting process, right? So, and this project is slightly bigger than the one on South Devon and Conestoga. It's a little more involved because there's more ADA ramps that are going to be either installed or removed. But that 18 months is the bidding and construction. That's the whole, that's from tonight to the signal is activated. So that's actually not unusual. Our bidding process alone, from bid to award, can be 3 to 4 months out of that time period.
Is there an opportunity in there to shave a couple months off if possible?
Commissioner, we always look to do that whenever we can.
Okay.
Any further questions or comments? Any public participation?
Sarah Pilling again. Sam and I were coming home from a commissioners meeting one night, and the need for this is very important. Fortunately, out of the corner of my eye, I saw 2 people in dark clothing darting across the road. It was a miracle that I missed them. So we need, it's not only designated for the drivers, but hopefully it will designate to those people crossing the street to use this crosswalk. And it's something that in the original plan in the early 2000s, when Garrett Hill did a plan, that we asked for at that time. So it's a good thing that in 2026 to 2027, this will finally go in. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public participation? Seeing none, I'm going to call a vote on Resolution 2025-127. All in favor? Aye. It's a unanimous kind of night. Okay. Next is reports of board liaisons. I know it's been a slow board meeting time, but we're gearing back up. Board of Health is happening next week, next Monday, I believe. Any new business? Any old business? Any final public participation? Seeing none, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn. So moved by Commissioner Agnew and seconded by Commissioner Riley. All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned.